and I'm gonna be doing the history of my bookshelves tag challenge thing. Cool. And nobody tagged me, I just wanted to do it, so here I am. Let's get into it. So the first prompt is the oldest book on my shelves. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm not sitting with like a million books behind me, like literally every booktuber in the history of booktube, it's because I keep my shelves very minimal. I only have 2 bookshelves. Most of the books that I buy or like come into my possession, I sell back to half-price books or I donate, because I don't keep a book unless it's 4 or 5 stars. If it's anything less than that, even if it's 4 stars and I just didn't really connect with it, I go ahead and give it a new home, because honestly, I just don't have the room for that in my apartment, sis. But, okay, oldest book on my shelf, Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. I read this in elementary school, and then I reread it in middle school, and then I reread it about a year ago, because it's very, very special to me. I got this book at like a scholastic, how do you even say that? Scholastic. I got this at a scholastic like warehouse, because my mom's a teacher, and like once every year they would have a big sale for teachers where they could come get books at a really low price. So she would be like, come on girl, you can come get your books too. So I got this there, and I've always kept it, and I just love it so much. Next up is a book that I read in 2013. That would be Carrie by Stephen King. I'm pretty sure this is still my favorite ever Stephen King book. I absolutely love this book. I love both movies. I love the horrible musical. I love this story, but nothing compares to the way that Stephen King tells it, so I will always keep this on my shelves. A book that I read in 2014 is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and this is the book that really got me into mystery thrillers, so I will never get rid of it ever. I love her so much. If you haven't read this at this point, like if you're like, oh, Gone Girl, gotta write that down, gotta put that in my Goodreads. Huh? Read it, it's so good. A book I read in 2015 is Rebecca, and I actually read this for school, and I didn't think I was gonna like it. I ended up absolutely loving it. It's definitely more of a romance than a thriller or a horror book, but it definitely has those elements, kind of like an ominous air, and there's a mystery that you're trying to figure out, and it has paranormal elements, or so you think. But this is a classic that I really love, and I'm so happy that it was on my school's curriculum. If I was an English teacher, I would definitely make my students read this because it's very good. Something I read in 2016, this was the year that I graduated high school, Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. I swore at that time that this was my favorite book, and it was so good, and like it still is really good. I think it's because I was fairly new to thrillers that the twists just really caught me off guard. But I loved this book. If you haven't read it, it's about a woman who is kind of revisiting a tragedy that happened in her past, and there are many twists and turns that I definitely didn't see coming. I would actually like to reread this at some point, and maybe I can vlog it. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do that, and let you know updated thoughts. It covers some pretty horrifying topics, so maybe I can see it through a new lens and tell you if it's problematic. I don't know. Let me know. A book I read in 2017 is Final Girls by Riley Sager. I love this book as well. I was like fully in the depths of reading thrillers at this point, and this is still to this day one of my favorites. I reread it twice, I think, and yeah, I love this book so much. If you haven't read it, so a final girl is a trope, and it means like the last girl that survives from a horror movie when everybody else is dead. The final girl, you know, lives on. So this is about 3 final girls, and maybe somebody's coming to hunt them down and get rid of them and finish them off. But there's a very unexpected twist, and if you haven't read it, definitely read it. I think even if you get spoiled for the twist, you should still read it. It's just thrilling. Like, it's a thriller that's thrilling. Oh my god. Like, no shit. But it actually is so thrilling, and it's so fast paced. I think I read this in 2 days the first time I read it. It's so good. A book I read in 2018 is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This is also one of my absolute favorites. I think it was my top book of 2018. I love her so much. I cried during this book. I know there are some people that don't like it, but I think that it handles mental health in a really sensitive way. If you don't know, I'm going to school. I'm getting my master's to become a mental health counselor or a psychotherapist. There are many different names, but the name of my degree is LPC. Getting my master's of arts in counseling, and I think this book handles mental health really well in a really relatable, heartbreaking way. And the moral of, like, everybody just needs somebody to talk to really touches me. So I love this book. A book that I read last year in 2019 is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Oh my god! I love this book. The moral dilemmas, the family drama, the scandals, like, oh my god, I love this book. I would die for this book. And the miniseries on Hulu, if you haven't seen that yet, girl, run, go watch it. Reese Witherspoon produced it, and she plays the main character, Elena Richardson, and it is absolutely phenomenal. It's like she took what I was picturing in my head when I was reading and put it on the screen. Like, it's a fabulous book and series. I highly recommend both. So the next prompt is a book that you've read more than once. I have a few books that I pretty much read on like an every couple years, a bi-yearly basis. Is that a thing? I don't really know. But this book, I actually read 3 times back to back. And it is 1984 by George Orwell. It's a classic, but at the time when I read this 3 times, I was a very naive high school girl, and I thought this was extremely deep. It obviously is, but I just thought this was really deep, and so I kept rereading it, and I made like super cringy notes and highlights in here, like, ooh, child. This was a phase. She jumped out of my hand. Moving on, the next question is a book that I waited over a year to be published. Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. So I don't know if you know, but there's a book, I don't know when it was published, like a long ass time ago, but it's called Turn of the Screw, and apparently it's iconic. Never read it, so I don't really know. But this was loosely based on Turn of the Screw, and the movie The Turning, which is, I think it came out in 2020 this year. I still haven't seen it, but I really want to, is based on that as well. I love horror movies, absolutely love them. And I knew that Ruth Ware was going to do a Turn of the Screw type take on that. I saw this on Goodreads a year before it was published, and I was like, I love Ruth Ware. I literally can't wait. I got this, rushed to Barnes & Noble the day this came out, got this, and read it the next day in one day, and I love this book. So the next one is a book that you read on vacation or away from home. That would be, okay, so I love Agatha Christie novels. I especially love this man, his books, his little series, but I'm embarrassed because I think the way that I say his name in my head when I'm like reading is incorrect. This looks like Hercules, right? So it has to be Hercule, right? Hercule, he's French, so this can't be Perrault, but it has to be Perrault. is Hercule Poirot wrong? Because I was really terrified to pronounce this and I'm too lazy to look it up. But I read this away from home during this past Christmas when I was staying at my mom's house in Houston, and I read it the day after Christmas, and I really enjoyed it. And I love Agatha Christie, and it was just a festive little mystery. A book that you got someplace special, which just means not like your local bookstore or online. So the majority of my books I get from Half Price Books or Book Outlet, so this is pretty difficult. But I actually found, this is one of my favorite books of all time, The Last Victim by Jason Moss. I actually found this, I was searching for it for years, could not find it anywhere. It was always like unavailable on Amazon, could not find it. I knew I wanted to read it. I finally found it at a vintage bookstore in downtown Houston, and I was so happy. I stayed up till like 4 in the morning reading this the night that I got it, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified. Could not go to sleep for the rest of the night, but I love that feeling, so I was all about it. And yeah, this is a true crime book about a man, Jason Moss, who just starts one day as a teenager writing letters to serial killers. So he talks to Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, all the classics. All the classics, and they actually end up responding, and he ends up going to meet with some of them, and it's a real book. It's a real book. It's nonfiction, and it's terrifying. I cannot believe this actually happened. If you like true crime at all, read this. Next up is a book that made you cry. Where the Crawdads Sing. I read this a couple weeks ago, and I still like randomly think about it. Like, I'll just be sitting there, like, literally dead ass. This happened like 20 minutes ago. I was just sitting in my kitchen eating risotto, and I thought about this book. Like, I think I cried 8 times reading this. It broke my heart so many times over. I thought this was going to be kind of like a courtroom mystery thriller, because it does cover a murder trial from this golden boy who has been found dead in like the swamp all the way out where the crawdads sing, and they're suspecting the local marsh girl, like a poor girl who lives on the outskirts of town in the marsh. They think that she did it, so I thought it was just going to be all about that, and it ended up being like a really beautiful account of like a coming of age story and young love and acceptance, and it was so beautiful and so touching, and the end is like Next up is a book that I read in one sitting, which I'm not gonna lie is most of my books. If I sit down to read a book, probably gonna just bulldoze through it until I'm done, especially if it's a good book, because I love just like getting lost in a book and reading all night and then never going to sleep and then waking up and going to grad school and being really exhausted. One of the books that I vividly remember, I read this in a few hours, like I flew through this book, is Girls in the Garden by Lisa Jewell. I absolutely love Lisa Jewell. She's one of my favorite authors. I have read every single one of her books except for one, The Atmosphere. Oh my god, if you love like suburban, like family drama, but set in England with like really interesting, rich characters, oh my god, this book. Also, I feel like the killer was a little bit predictable. I did end up guessing it, but even so, just the journey that this takes you on is so thrilling and page turning. Like after every chapter, you just want to like flip to the next. So good. Highly recommend. Also, side note, if you want me to do a guide to Lisa Jewell's books, because I love so many of them, I'm definitely open to doing that. I know her most recent books and the most popular ones, Family Upstairs and Watching You, have not gotten the best reviews on BookTube. Those are actually my two least favorite books that she's written. I highly, highly recommend all of her books, but out of all of them, those are not the best. I would recommend you starting with a few other ones, but if you want a full guide, let me know in the comments and I would be so happy to do that. Next up is a book that was a gift, In 5 Years by Rebecca Surley. My mom actually just got this book for me and gave it to me while I was home quarantining in Houston, and I read it in one day because I always do that, and I was in quarantine and I was like super bored. So yeah, this, if you don't know what it's about, a woman goes to sleep and she thinks she's dreaming, or maybe it's a premonition of her life 5 years in the future, and she wakes up in a different apartment with a different man, and she's like, whoa, wait, what the hell is going on? I thought my life was like this and I was really happy with it. So it's kind of the journey to figure out how her life got that way, and it's not what you think, and it's like, oh my god, I cried during this too. It's very good. A book that I read before owning is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. So this was the book that I did my senior thesis on, and I actually borrowed it from the library. I didn't think it was gonna be good enough to be on my shelves, but I absolutely love it, and I've reread it multiple times since my senior thesis, and I absolutely love it. This is another book, even though it's very old, I don't know when it was published. Hold up. 1981. So this book was published in 1981, and it's astounding how delicately it handles mental health, specifically PTSD. And I actually struggled with a little bit of PTSD my senior year of high school, so I felt like this book just came to me at the perfect time. And yeah, I don't want to get emotional, but it's a really, really good book. A book that you lent to someone else. Actually, I just lent my mom like 4 different books because I am her library, and I'm fine with that. I love that. But the one that I think she's reading right now is The House We Grew Up In by Lisa Jewell. Absolutely crazy. It's literally about a nutso family, and it's just like figuring out the twists and turns of their family dynamic. So crazy. Highly recommend. Next up is a book that has been damaged. So this is my copy of Sadie, and I know you're thinking that, wow, it looks so beautiful, but all these pages, I don't know if you can see, right here are like completely weird and wavy because I was reading this in the pool and I got splashed. A book that I got on sale / discounted would be The Green Mile by Stephen King. I actually still have the bookmark in here. It's from a Novel Idea bookstore in Nebraska. That's actually a very special place to me because if any of y'all are theater kids, that is the bookstore right by the University of Nebraska Lincoln campus, and that is where the International Thespian Festival is held every summer. And yeah, I got this while I was there, and it was super, super cheap, and there's cats running around the bookstore, and it's just a really happy place to be. So this book makes me happy, even though it's Stephen King and it's terrifying. A book that I read with someone else is The Group by Donald L. Rosenstein and Justin M. Yop. I'm actually reading this with a couple of girls from one of my classes this semester. We have a little book club that we started because we are going to be running like therapy groups together, co-facilitating group therapy. So we just wanted to read it together and discuss it and hopefully improve our skills. So I'm really excited to finish this up. Next question is a book you associate with a song. All of the other videos I've watched, nobody can come up with anything, and if they do, it's like, I guess this. It literally popped into my mind so fast, I'm not kidding you. I cannot get this song out of my head ever. Like 80% of the time, if you're like, hey Haley, what song is stuck in your head? Bro, the theme song from Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. Literally, the HBO series had a theme song, and it was like, did you ever want it? Did you want it bad? Oh, why? And it just like went on, and it was like, yes, Big Little Lies. And like every time I watched the show and it would play, I'm like, I'm ready. Give me Reese, give me Nicole. I'm so ready. I love this book, and I also love the series, but that damn theme song, literally cannot get it out of my head ever. Next up is a book that I associate with a food. That's going to have to be Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo? I don't know. This is actually one of my favorite books from childhood, and in the book and in the movie adaptation, the main character in the book is a child and her mother leaves her, and her dad and her bond over eating these candies that he calls melancholy candies, or she calls melancholy candy. I don't know. Somebody in the book, I haven't read this in a while, but somebody in the book calls these candies melancholy candies, and it is absolutely heartbreaking, but I always think of those candies and how they're like sad and melancholy, and her mommy left and it's so sad. But I love this book. Next up is a book that you got years ago but probably wouldn't buy now. I don't have any, girl. So I reassess my bookshelves every few months, and if there's something that I feel like I don't like anymore, or I just don't need to have it on my shelves, I get rid of it, I donate it, I sell it back to half price. So I don't have anything that I wouldn't want on my shelves now. I like to be able to pick any book off my shelf at any time and know that I will enjoy it 100%. Next up is a book that you associate with a specific time in your life. That's got to be I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. Oh my god. First of all, this book is amazing. It's true crime. It's about the journey to catch the Golden State Killer / the East Area Rapist / the original Night Stalker, who is a horribly twisted and evil man who is luckily going to die in prison now. But I associate this with my first ever trip to LA. So in 2018, I took my first trip to LA and I read this on the plane. I had the most magical time in LA, and I was reading this book during downtime. I was staying at one of my best friend's apartments, and during downtime I was reading this book, and I also read it on both plane rides, and I ended up finishing it like just as we landed, and it's very, very good. And Michelle McNamara actually dedicated her entire life to catching this man, and actually passed before she could finish this book. So it is kind of patched together. The two main investigators on the case helped finish this book based on her notes they went through, and helped this get published after she passed away. So it's a tough one. I was crying on the plane when I read this, so if you get this, maybe don't read it on a plane, but it's really good. Next up is a book that I used to like, but I do not like anymore, and this one is a doozy, my friends. This is possibly the cringiest thing I'm going to put on the internet, but it is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I don't even know what to say about this. Literally look at the amount of sticky notes. I got this when I was 16, and I thought it was really deep, and I don't like it anymore. Needless to say, should we just go through and see some of the, oh my god, I pressed a bluebonnet in my book. Wait, this is kind of beautiful. Okay, maybe she was deep. Wait, okay, this isn't illegal, right? There's like rumors that it's illegal to pick a bluebonnet. I don't think it is, but if it is, don't expose me. Let's just go see what I put a sticky note on. Let's find a short one. Ooh. It must hurt to know I am your most beautiful regret. I'm your most beautiful regret. Oh, God. The last prompt is the newest book on your shelves, which is Desi Jones and the Six. I just got this at Target with my mom, and I'm super excited to read it. I was resisting reading it so much. I just did not think it would interest me. Something that I kind of have a weird thing against in books is heavy drug use, and I know that happens a lot in this book, so I was kind of hesitant to pick it up. But then I started to read Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books, and I love them so much, and I just love her writing style, so I went ahead and got it. So that is it for this video. Go ahead and comment down below what other kind of videos you guys would want to see, because I'm just doing tags because I don't know what else y'all would want to see me do. If you want me to do the guide to Lisa Jewell, let me know. Guide to Ruth Ware, she's another one of my favorite authors, let me know. Guide to Agatha Christie, recommendations for thrillers, romance, contemporary, whatever you want, let me know, and I'll see you next time. Subscribe, please. Thank you. Goodbye.